see the necessity of everyone being out here on the picket line today.
Yes.
Picket lines are a great institution in this country, but it's painful when we have to use them. But we have to use them now because the wealthy are waging a class war against middle class and lower income people in this country. Every time in Washington, when we talk about higher taxes or tax reform on upper income people, they say, the Republicans, others say, you're waging class war. Well, the fact is, there is a class war being waged in this country, a very effective class war being waged for the last 30 years against middle-income people, against low-income people, against working class.
That's right.
The unions are the last line of resistance. So they are trying to break the unions. You see that in state legislative capitals like Madison, Wisconsin. You see it in Ohio. You see it in practical terms, not in Albany, but right here. They do not believe that it is tolerable in this country for middle-class families to earn a decent wage. They think that is wrong. After all, when they pay 5 executives $250 million, if you didn't have health care, if you didn't have pensions, they could pay him $350 million. So why are you getting in the way? How dare you? How dare you stand up for your own rights? How dare you stand up for the rights of middle-income people and low-income people to get a decent share of the bounty of this country? The corporations in this country are sitting on $2 trillion in corporate profits right now, and they're not even investing them. They're not hiring people with it. But they're sitting on $2 trillion. The share of the wealth generated in this country every year going to corporate profits is higher than it's ever been in our history. The share of the wealth in this country that is going to wages of workers is the lowest it has ever been in our country's history. The lowest. And then you wonder why. You wonder why people get upset. You wonder why people lose faith in government. You wonder why people aren't buying enough to support the economy. The employers here, besides being SOBs, besides setting new standards of greed, have forgotten the basic lesson of Henry Ford, which most people these days in history don't even learn. In 1914, Henry Ford increased the wages of his workers to $5 a day. He was asked why. He said, so they can buy my cars.
That makes sense.
At least in 1914, 20 years later, he forgot they'd have sit-down strikes. But in 1914, he understood. You cannot have an economy, you cannot have a consumer-based economy when people don't have the money to buy things.
That's right.
70% of our economy is based on consumers buying things, and our consumers don't have the money to buy them anymore, and that's why we have a depression.
That's right.
And people don't want to understand that.
No, they don't.
This strike,
The money.
this strike is a very important, extremely important, crucial stand at the barricade. Still a very profitable company. A company that earned, I think, what, $13 billion in profits. 19 billion, excuse me. What's a little $6 billion? What's a few billion between friends? A company that earned $22.5 billion, what, 4 years? 4.5 years. Can't afford to pay its people decent wages. Can't afford new people to have pensions. And look what's going on. We have governors all over this country. We have ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, which gives great right-wing ideas to legislators, which is funded by the big corporations, funded by Verizon, funded by the Koch brothers. They come in state capitals all over. They come in, they fund the Manhattan Institute, they control the New York Post, the New York Daily News, and you read all these articles, my God, we can't afford to pay public workers pensions. They ought to have 401ks. They ought to try their luck in the stock market. Because after all, the private sector workers, most of them don't have pensions anymore. Why should public workers be privileged? Instead of saying, gee, we made a terrible mistake. We took away the pensions of too many of the private sector workers. Let's spread it out and restore the pensions. They say, no, let's make one segment of the working class jealous of the other segment of the working class. Let's get brother fighting brother and sister fighting sister. Let's play divide and conquer. Let's say to the cops and firemen, you don't deserve pensions, because after all, the construction workers don't have pensions, or whoever. But some people still have pensions. You have pensions, so they got to take it away. Because if they don't take away your pensions, or your successors, your newer co-workers' pensions, then they can't take it away, or it's harder to take it away from the cops and the teachers and the state workers. And why should working people have the right to a secure retirement? Why should working people have the right to decent health care? I noticed that the health care for the Verizon executives is free and unlimited.
Unlimited, yes.
Unlimited.
Unlimited.
Why shouldn't the CEO earn 300 times as much as the worker? In Japan, that would be considered cause for shame for harakiri. How dare you? So there's a class war being waged here. You are standing at the barricades. I hate to quote a Republican, but I will. There were some decent ones in the past. Teddy Roosevelt, one of the last decent ones. He said in 1912, we stand at Armageddon and we battle for the Lord. You and we stand at Armageddon. We battle for the Lord. We battle for a decent society. We battle for a decent standard of living. We battle to maintain this as a decent society and stop it from this, being the United States, from being converted into what it might have become in 1920. It was well on the way to becoming a society of very rich and very poor. But stop that with unions and union organizing drives. Let me say one other thing. How many times have you read? How many times have you read newspaper articles or magazine articles and they said, well, you know, the country has changed. We used to have a lot of well-paying, middle-class manufacturing jobs, and unfortunately,